like to call to order the July 17th, 2018 Lake Mills City Council. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mr. Fritsch?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Knippel?
Here.
And we have everybody here tonight, which has been a while since that happened. So we're glad to have that. And because of that, we have minutes from a couple meetings, since you didn't have a quorum of people that were at the meeting before. Thank you for tabling that, Vicki, at the last meeting. So, yeah, we're getting calendar notices here. So, we have the correction and or approval of the regular city council and work session of June 5th, 2018. I think we should, well, actually, we could do them all together because everybody's here. So, unless it's better to divide it. What do you think? Should we do it in two?
Which meeting did
June
you?
5th.
I think we were short a couple of people on that one.
Yeah, you didn't have a quorum, enough people for that because Doug and I were both gone, and you were gone at that meeting, so you only had two people.
Right.
So, should we do them all together? Or do you want to?
I think we should split them up.
Okay, so we'll just do June 5th at this time. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the City Council regular meeting and work session for June 5th?
So move.
Second.
Okay. And any discussion? Seeing none. Would you call the roll, please, for the June 5th minutes?
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Abstain.
Okay. And now we'll do the minutes for the June 19th meeting, where Mr. Fritsch and I were not present, so somebody will need to make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve June 19th, 2018 minutes.
Okay, I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Abstain.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Abstain.
Motion passed.
Okay. Moving to item 4, correspondence. Who would like to start correspondence tonight? Anybody? Yes?
I received some emails from Greg Worth, just in looking to make sure that we had received his letter of resignation, that the council was aware of it, so he just sent me several emails on that, so I've been corresponding with him.
Okay. Now, just to make it clear that that appointment is a Steve Wilkie appointment, not a council appointment. And so that is why we did not get that. Right?
He actually resigned from Police and Fire Commission and
Yep.
Board of Review.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, I see. I didn't catch that.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay, so we have a new opening on the Board of Review. Okay. All right. So the part especially related to the Board of Review would be pertinent to all the council members. And maybe we can get that taken care of so that Mr. Wilkie can take care of it. Okay. Anybody else have correspondence? Okay, I have a couple things. One, I want to mention on behalf of the people at the board at the Lake Mills Housing Authority. I have a copy of the financial audit with me here tonight if any of you want to borrow it, to look at it. It is good, the audit was very favorable and so forth, but I wanted the council to know that they had access to seeing it. So I have that here if you want to borrow it. And I did have some people call me during the past time since I was at a meeting. The one thing that was brought up to me that I thought maybe I'd just bring up to the council is an idea that I thought had some merit, and maybe we could at least mention it tonight. The residents said that sometimes when they're down in Commons Park, they find dog poop that isn't from their dog, but they find it. And they were wondering if we could maybe put something on the bathroom building where you could get a plastic bag for picking up dog poop. And then people that see it could go get it, pick it up, throw it away. And I don't know how difficult that would be to do that, but I thought it had merit, so I thought I'd bring it up tonight under correspondence, and maybe Steve could pass that on to Rob, because I think it would fall in his lap. So see if that's a possibility.
All right.
Unless somebody says we can't do that for some reason. So. Any other correspondence? Seeing none. Okay. Moving on to questions and public comment. We do not have a public hearing. So the public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in public comment tonight? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
On your agenda, I provided the monthly PD report, the general fund check registers, the capital budget and regular budget for May, the letter from the League of Municipalities about dark stores, the letter from the WPPA requesting to open negotiations, the letter from the Sandy Beach Trailer Group, and the Arbordelia letter. I also have information on that as part of the Mill Pond dredging study. One of the end proposals was being able to get bigger boats into the Mill Pond to get down to downtown. Part of that was to change the bridge. That was dropped really early, not because we weren't going to consider it, but that we wanted to wait until the bridge would have to be replaced, which could be quite a ways off. Part of that proposal looked at, could the boats get under that old iron bridge out there, and so that was part of the discussion that was in there, but there's no action or any type of indication that that's an action item at this time or even in the very near future. There's been no action on the Lake Mills EMS fire study that the fire chief was going to do. Intercon is still working on cleanup on South Main Street. The end of last week they were doing landscaping. I don't think they have it all done. I know they don't have all their asphalt patches done. So there's still some of those things going on. Peeper did come in and do a little work at the end of last week too, and I noticed Frontier was taking some of their telephone lines off the poles. So they're going to finalize that so we can get those poles down. The composting study will be at the Public Works Board again in August. Mulberry Street, we're now working on the encroachment report, which means there were 3 properties that had encroachments, so we'll have to issue permits for that. The electric construction will probably start out there next week, probably around Wednesday.
Will that be done by the city or?
No, that was contracted out, and that is Peeper that's doing that one. In fact, you approved the contract at the last meeting, but you weren't here. There was a different contractor that won the Mangan development one, so, but that one didn't go for a bid because that's paid for by the contractor. Street maintenance, we got about 60% of the asphalt patches that we have in town done. The rest of them were held off on for miscellaneous reasons, such as the concrete contractor didn't get the concrete in early enough, and it was still too green to lay asphalt up against. Some of them are in areas where we're going to do the mill and overlay, so we're just going to wait until we come in and do the mill and overlay. And so there are several reasons like that run together. We also have probably 5 or 6 more that'll be done. So we're probably looking at having the asphalt contractor come in again in mid-April or mid-August, and then they'll probably, I know that they're looking at later in the month at doing, later in August, early September, doing the Grove Street mill and overlay and the Woodland Beach Street Drive mill and overlay. So those will be several big projects that'll be coming up. They're going to start, not next week, but the week after, they're going to start the stormwater on Woodland Beach Road. They're laying about, I don't know, 400, 500 feet of storm pipe from the intersection of Ferry and Woodland Beach Road to just past the first intersection with Woodland Beach Court. They're still trying to get the landscaping done on County Highway V, and there was one driveway that wasn't completed because the property owner's negotiating with the asphalt paver to pave more of the parking lot, so we held off until they could get that taken care of. I noticed that the Doyle's crosswalk was painted.
Oh, I didn't know. Thank you. I was going to ask. Thank you.
The American Way road improvement, we've been in negotiations with the property owner to the south. Some of that, he hasn't made a decision on which road he's taking as to whether he's donating that to the city or using it for development. If he uses it for development, he has to raise the road, changes the design, changes the cost. So we've kind of laid it in their court that they have to make a decision on that, so we're kind of holding off on that. We're looking at new industrial park signs, probably know by the end of the week. You'll notice that the Mangan development is in full gear. Crestview Plat will probably start next week. The North Shore development probably won't start for a month yet. There is a development going on in Elm Street, and that's been approved. There are some unique conditions to that tie into some of the issues we've been working on with Linden Street. So we'll try and figure out where we're headed with that. Some of the improvements at the library, they're still in this year's budget. They'll still probably get done, but they're kind of, you know, we want to make sure we get everything else done first. The radium consent order, we're on schedule, but we have a contractor coming in to do the first set of testing at the well mid-August, and so that gives us a timeline that we have to have done by January 1st of 19. The corrosion control one, which is where we have to test our water and the orthophosphates that we add to see how it lines the lead pipes. That's proceeding. There's some decisions that the DNR has to make as far as exactly how much demonstration we have to do. There's some items that were like, this is our pH, we know this is what happens. There's no reason why we should have to do a demonstration on that, but they were gonna talk it over and get back to us.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, have we made a decision on whether we'll be making a contribution to the League of Municipalities?
No, that's council thing. They would have to contact me
Okay.
and get it on the agenda, and the council would have to approve it at a council meeting.
Thank you.
You could do that after the meeting tonight.
We're probably going to change health insurance this year. And so we're having a meeting on that in 2 weeks. And so you'll probably see a pretty substantial proposal coming in on that, because we'll have to send the state notice that we're terminating our health insurance with the state of Wisconsin. And we did meet with RLAC and made them a proposal. I think they were pretty happy with it, but it's requires your final approval, so we'll talk about that later. Other than that, are there any other things you want to go over?
It sounds like you've been pretty busy. No lack of work to do.
Doesn't cover one of the sheets. Some things.
Same with our city attorney, too. Been a busy guy. So.
Yeah, which brings up interviews coming up Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to just mention, I thought maybe this would be a good time to mention it again, that anyone in the city of Lake Mills who would like to come on Thursday night at 5:30.
Correct.
It's going to be downstairs.
Correct.
In the room downstairs to meet the 3 final candidates for police chief.
One
two.
of the final candidates is taken outside position, so he withdrew from,
Okay. So
from consideration here. So there are 2 final candidates.
Okay, so you're only going to get to meet 2 people. Okay. So this Thursday, 5:30, downstairs. Okay, hope you can come. All right, that moves us to item number 7. It looks like we have a little housekeeping. Would that be what we're looking at here, that for the multi-use facility ad hoc committee, we obviously did not get their minutes on the, what do we call it? Putting
Regular
it-
basis.
Yeah, so tonight we would like to accept the minutes from the multi-use facility ad hoc committee for November 17th, 2016, January 12th, 2017, February 9th, 2017, March 16th, 2017, May 5th, 2017, July 13th, 2017, July 31st, 2017, and October 19th, 2017. So would like to just do that. We don't have to vote on that, right? No. Do we have some more recent ones that already are on the books, right? Are these just past ones?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm not sure either. It seems
It's
like.
possible.
Well, you've had more meetings, more recent meetings than October 19th, right? Or was that the last time?
No, I think that was the
No.
last one.
Yeah.
Oh, it really is. Okay, so this is really all the meetings of that committee?
Where the whole committee met.
Yes, I think so. That's my understanding. Okay, so they will be put on file, and we'll move on to item 8, council business. Item A, city manager appointments. Turn it to you.
I have an appointment for the Police and Fire Commission, and it's Adam Smith. Your application, you have an application for that. And he is in the crowd if you want to ask him any questions. He is the crowd.
He is the crowd. Never had you described that way before, see? So, and that's your appointment?
just a-
Council does not approve it?
No.
It's an approved, so assuming that he put you on, I guess you're on, and we want to thank you for giving of your time and serving on the committee and being willing to do that. And I see we have our younger member of the family here too, which is very nice. So, well, that's okay. We don't discourage anybody. So you never know, she might be the future council president someday. So, but anyway, thank you again for offering to do that. So, moving on to item B, miscellaneous licenses. We have tavern operators licenses. I'm going to ask Betsy if she would be kind enough to read those names for us.
Sure. Salima Rodriguez, Ruby Stevens, Lauren McAdow, Tisha Hammonds, Gregory Lofnan, Jeffrey Bear, Kristen Griebel, Patience Olson, Curtis Smith, and Clifford Olson.
Okay. Is there a motion to take these as a group, or does someone want to separate
I
anybody
move
else?
that we accept them as a group.
Okay, I have a motion to,
I'll second it.
okay, to approve. I have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fritsch,
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch,
Aye.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Discussion and decision on the request from the Lake Mills Rotary Club to use the community center for a fundraiser. And let me get to that item on my agenda here. So, now, are you, okay. Are you speaking in favor of the Rotary Club, Steve? You're a Rotary member.
Yeah, I'm a member. I can speak to the issue. I'm not
Yeah,
speaking in
since
favor.
I don't think there's anyone else here, is there?
Nope.
Okay, we have a, would you read the title, the motion title for us, Betsy?
Sure. Motion 18721, authorizing the use of Lake Mills Community Center by the Lake Mills Rotary Club.
Okay, you want to tell us about that, Steve?
I got tickets if you want to buy any.
Okay, you need a motion, we
Yeah,
need a
let's
motion.
make a motion.
Let's make it, okay,
I'll move them.
okay, Doug is,
I will move motion 18-7-2-1.
okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and now do you want to tell us about what we're approving?
It's I think they're in their third year now. It's a cheese, wine, and chocolate event. And they have they sell tickets and they bring in a lot of people and they have a bunch of vendors and you get to sample all the types of food and drinks that are available on that night. It's quite an event. Good fundraiser, fun time.
And this is for the Owen Street right-of-way? That's what mine says. That's not right, is it?
No.
Okay, that's,
It says, let's see, mine says the Lake Mills Rotary Club is authorized to use the Lake Mills Community Center.
yeah, and on the top of my thing, it says, motion for city council, Owen Street right-of-way.
Oh, yeah, she didn't.
So
So I was just a little
reuse
confused.
template.
Yeah,
So, it doesn't say the date on here.
It's August
it?
4th.
August,
It's on
Okay,
the second
fourth.
page on the application.
well, okay, that's what I was trying to bring up. I'm just having trouble
Nope.
getting it to come up.
Dan, you gotta back out,
Oh, okay, all right.
next page down.
Oh, that's why I didn't do it right. Okay,
Middle one.
yeah, I got it. So, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? And as you said, whoever wants to buy tickets, Steve is selling them. But that's really not part of this. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, snuck that one in. So,
What's the cost of the tickets?
$35 in advance, $40 at the door.
Oh.
okay, thank you.
And this is low calorie, healthful. cheese and
I
chocolate.
heard wine is good for you, right?
I don't know
And
about
cheese is
low
great
calorie.
for you. I carry a ton of cheese on me.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed.
There we go. Oops, now I went too far back. Okay. So moving on to presentation on the 2017 financial statements by Hawkins Ash's CPA. And I'm glad you came over to the podium. And what item would you like us to be looking at when you talk?
Well, I think in the past, I've gone through the short version of the report.
Okay?
I mean, I can do the long,
Well,
short,
we-
or the
Whatever
short
one you, I'm asking because then I'll bring up the one that you want us to look at.
Short
summary,
version
the
is, short
summary.
version is 5 minutes, the long version is 5 minutes. How about
I
that?
think we'll do the 5 minutes, and if somebody has questions.
Okay,
we
it would
can
be
go
the
in.
one called Summary Financial
That's
Report.
where I am. Okay, gotcha.
And this is Chuck Krieger from Hawkins Ash CPAs.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thanks for inviting me here tonight. As I said, this will be relatively brief, and as I guess I mention every year, if you have questions as we're going along, you can speak up and let me know, or if there's something after the fact that you come across and you say, hey, wonder what was going on here, get the question to Betsy, she will get it to me, and I will get you an answer. Okay?
Gotcha.
First thing to note on this report, if you go back one page, there you go. That's your independent auditor's report, and really this is what we get paid for, I guess. We look at the numbers, we decide, does the information provided present fairly in all material respects the operations of the city? It includes your utilities, your TID districts, all the funds that you have. Now, one of the key things I always say is it says in all material respects. It doesn't mean we look at every transaction. Normally, people don't want to pay us for that, and we don't want to spend the time looking at every transaction. Okay, so we do stuff like sampling, and we look at reconciliations and that type of thing. But you did get a clean opinion, which means things are in order according to auditing standards and generally accepted accounting principles as they relate to governmental units. It is the best report you can get, and you've gotten it every year that I've been on this job, I believe. So if we move on to page 3, this shows a combined balance sheet. Top half is assets and some other asset-like items. And then the bottom half is your liabilities and equity. I always like to say the top half is what you own, the middle part is what you owe, and the bottom is what's left over. Okay, that's kind of what you've paid off and put in your pocket. Just some items to note in the 2017 compared to 16. Cash investments are up about $3 million. Some of that relates to when your tax payments come in. Some years people pay more in December, more people pay in December versus January and February. Plus there's unspent bond proceeds. You borrowed money last year and not all of it was spent by the end of the year. Okay? You look down at the taxes receivable and there's I know it's hard to see on this, but there's a decrease in the taxes receivable of about $600,000. As I mentioned, if the receivable is down, chances are the cash is going to be up some. Okay. Other items to note: the accounts. If you go toward the top a little bit yet, the line that says under receivables, accounts and other. You notice it went from $960,000 up to $1.6 million. That increase in that receivable is mostly money that's owed from the state for the dam project, okay, and the Highway 89 conveyances, okay. There was a lot of activity in that area last year where basically you guys shelled out the money ahead of time and then sent a bill to the state. And as of December 31st, there was a pretty significant amount owing from the state for those conveyances. I'm guessing maybe 400,000 or 500,000.
I think it was closer to 6. It was over 5.
Okay, so, and so that makes up the bulk of the increase there, because that is not something that you had in 2016. Other items to note, the other receivables kind of vary year to year. They ebb and flow. There is a loan receivable there. You saw it went down from 195 to 176. That's the revolving loan fund that you have a loan out to a business in town. They made their scheduled payments just as they were required to. Next item to note, the fixed assets. The fixed assets that show here are utility fixed assets. It doesn't look like there's much change there, but what you need to remember is this is after depreciation. So in the current year, you probably added, I don't know, $1 million in fixed assets in the utility, and you probably had almost $1 million in depreciation. So the net doesn't look like it went up too much, but as Steve was going through his list of items that the city's working on, my thought was the same as Mrs. Fritsch. You guys are busy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the city. And so fixed assets is one of the items. You can see the advances to other funds, that's down a little bit. That principally is the TID activity. As you TIDs grow and assess taxes on that, they're able to pay off the advances. The city in the past has done some advance some money. They pay expenses on behalf of the TID. Maybe the TID didn't have funds at that time. When they come in some TID revenue, then they pay some of that back. Okay. There's no schedule for payback on that, and it's just as cash flow allows from the TID. Moving on to the liability area. Not too much different there. You know, your accounts payable kind of goes from year to year. Everything is pretty much the status quo. The exception, of course, is long-term debt. Now, this is the long-term debt that shows on this is only of the utility. The city's long-term debt, both of them increased this year. I mean, and obviously, you know, based on what's going on, there's a lot of debt being taken out. You're doing, in the utility, you're doing meter changeovers. That is a substantial undertaking. I mean, there's a payback on there, but, you know, you've got to do that money up front to get it. So the debt for the utility reflects, I think there was about $500,000 in debt from Greenwoods, and then there was $500,000 from Whippy, you know, your energy company that supplies a lot of stuff for you. And I think that one's either low or no interest.
It's no interest.
You know, which is great if you can get that kind of stuff. I kind of skipped the deferred outflows and the deferred inflows of resources. Just a little comment on that. The deferred outflows at the top, charge on refunding, that's when you refinance debt. And there was difference between what you paid off and what you had to borrow to refinance it, and that gets amortized over a period of time. The Wisconsin Retirement System pension, you can see it went from 700,000 down to about 500. This is in essence your portion of what the Wisconsin Retirement System is, I guess, your portion of the assets of the Wisconsin Retirement System. And offsetting that, there's a retirement system pension inflow at the bottom for about $200,000. As I tell people, it's not something you can go out and spend, which is one of the reasons it doesn't show up in an asset or a liability. It shows up as deferred outflows or deferred inflows. Every municipality, school district, technical district in the state that is a member of the Wisconsin Retirement System has this type of information on their financial statements. Okay? And I will say this, the financial position of the WRS, we get that information once a year and reflect your proportionate interest in that on your statements. 2 or 3 years ago, they were funded at a little over 100%, which meant for every dollar they thought they were going to have to pay out in the future to pay everybody off, they had $1.01. Okay? Then the markets kind of took a dive and they were at 98 point something. Well, now they're at 90, I think they're within a percent or so of being 100% funded again. It's not like, even if they were down to 90%, it's, yeah, you wouldn't want that, but the Wisconsin retirement system is well funded compared to other retirement systems in the state. I venture to say if you went south to Illinois, you would find a very different story there.
You don't want to go south to
Okay.
Illinois.
Hey, they finally balanced their budget, I think, statewide for the first time in 4 years to have a budget. So the Wisconsin retirement system is, you know, my opinion, well-run organization, and it's well-funded. It's probably in the top 5 out of 50 states in the United States of retirement systems from a funding perspective. Okay, and then at the bottom is your net position. And this really is the net position, the 24 million that you see there, that's really the utilities net position. Okay? The general fund shows that equity section is really the fund balance. Now it looks like, holy cow, we went up 1.3 million. Some of that is that unspent bond proceeds I talked about. Okay? So I suspect next year, everything else being equal, you'll see that number come back down and they'll say, oh, geez, how come we went from 4.6 to, let's say, 4 million? Well, some of those bond proceeds that you had sitting in cash this year are now going to be spent. Now, if we're going to, the pie chart on the next page, along with the with page 4 of the actual data, kind of go together. The pie chart shows in graphic terms where you get your revenue from, and the numbers are on page 4. If you look at the pie chart, public charges for services is nearly 50%, and that's your utility revenue. You have to remember the utility and the city are together on this information. Taxes and special assessments, 23% is the next biggest. And then the proceeds from long-term debt I talked about, you haven't spent it all. Well, here's 3.2 million was borrowed last year, and that's and some of that is unspent. Other main areas, intergovernmental, that's the aid that you get from the state of Wisconsin and other sources. Okay, and if you took a look at last year, this year, that would be bigger because of that those conveyance dollars that are going to come through at some point. I guess one thing to note, if we actually look at the numbers on the next page, the property taxes, the very first line, you can say, wow, that I didn't realize we levied that much more in tax. It's up, you know, $700,000. The principally that increase is due to TID tax revenue. Long story short, the state, I think, shorted you on TID increment a couple of years. They discovered their error, and then they allowed you to levy additional for that in this last year. Is that correct? I believe so. Now, next year it will settle back down to kind of what it should have been. So that's one of the reasons that that tax revenue is up. Other revenues there, as I mentioned, the intergovernmental, you can see other grants of $1 million versus about 400 last year. That's the conveyance money again coming through there. And the rest of it, kind of what you see is what you get, not huge variations from year to year. And then at the bottom, we see the proceeds from long-term debt, and you know, you borrowed $3 million in 16 and 3.2 in 17. The operating transfers in that very last line, that's your tax equivalent that comes in from the utilities. So the utilities have a lot of property, they don't pay property tax on it, but they pay an equivalent fee to the city. The sewer doesn't pay anything. You're prohibited from assessing it on sewer assets, but the water and electric do. Excuse me. Okay, the next 2 pages are expenditures in pie chart format and then the actual numbers. The expenditures, you know, if charges for services and that type of thing was the biggest item, Public Works is where we put in utility. That would be the biggest expenditure. It kind of follows the revenue and expenses kind of match up. Capital outlay, that's your fixed asset work that's going on in the city and in the TIDs. If you look at the numbers on page 5, as I mentioned, you had some unspent bond proceeds. Well, you can kind of see that you brought in, you spent $23 million in 16, and in 17 you spent $21 million. So again, if you kind of do the apples to apples stuff, you're going to have some stuff that, some activity that's going to be increased in the next year as you spend some of those bond proceeds. And then the last, well, I guess page 6, this shows the fund balance trend. First there's a graph that shows it, and then on page 6 it shows the numbers. And as I had mentioned, the general fund had revenue of $10 million and expenditures of 9.2. So generally that would be much closer. The unspent bond is what accounts for that. And if you look, I'm trying to think, you know, as you look, special assessments has got a negative, and so does sanitation and recycling. But sanitation and recycling is making its way toward even. 4 years ago it was much less of a, it had much bigger deficit. Slowly but surely it's, you know, and you want to get to the point where your revenues coming in match or exceed your money coming out, and it has for the last a couple of years. Just some general comments. I talked about on the very last page, which would be page 7. I talked about the auditor's report, which was a clean opinion. Fixed assets, we talked, there was about $3.5 million of total fixed assets added. Long-term debt of the city is at $18.2 million at the end of 17. Your statutory limit on debt for the city is $27 million. So you're within about $9 million of your limit. Okay, just something to keep in mind. I've never had anyone get super close to the limit. About the most I've seen has been about 90% of their limit. You probably don't want to get there if you can help it. It's just, you know, because it's tough to finance that debt, you know. And other than that, we also issued some additional reports on internal control and reports to the City Council, which is called reports on Governance Committee. The Council is that. And then management advisory comments. One thing I have to say, this was probably one of the more difficult years. I think Betsy and I both agree with this from an audit perspective. She has 2 relatively new staff in her office. You know, the utility clerk has only been there about a year and a half. And as we said, you're busy. Just because you got new people doesn't mean progress stops. And then her city bookkeeper was there, I think, maybe a month.
Yes, she started in the middle of December.
Sometime in December she started. On my side of the coin, I had 2 new staff also. So Betsy and I had many discussions about training and you know, walking step by step through items to make sure people understand and that we get the right information as to what's needed. And all that takes learning. There's all learning curves on everybody's part, and I think we worked well together to get this accomplished.
Yes, I agree.
So, Yes,
I have a question. On page 10, why is the library without expenditures? Is that because of it being with the county? There's nothing in the expenditures column.
library expenditures.
Yeah, on page
Are you-
10.
Are you looking at the second to last line?
Actually,
Of
there's
the-
two of them. One is under special revenues, and one is under permanent funds.
Right.
Oh, see, so
Those
the
are-
special revenue fund, these are basically funds that are set aside to earn interest, donation money. Okay, the actual library operations itself shows up through the general fund activity.
Okay, so there just isn't any there
Right.
under that
Right.
category.
I mean, typically you collect donations, that kind of stuff, and if there's something needed, they may say, okay, we need a new copier,
Right,
okay?
right.
We're gonna pay for it out of donation money, then you would see an expenditure for that, but in this case, there was just revenue, which was principally donations and interest.
Okay, and then the same is true for permanent funds under trust.
Again, same thing, that's interest. There was some that was donated at one point that they said, you only can spend it on this, or you can only invest it in this and spend the proceeds.
And
I
they
mean, the
didn't,
interest.
and they
So-
didn't make any expenditures this past
Yeah.
year.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Anybody else have questions?
I had a question, and it's actually on the, a different document that's within that, the management advisory comments.
Okay?
And actually, page 7, the item that's listed as unresolved there, is that still unresolved?
Pardon?
There's an item that's listed as unresolved there, a debt service fund issue, is that still unresolved?
What page number?
Well,
Page 7.
The debt service fund, state statutes require you have a separate fund for it, and you levy separately for it, okay? In your case, that levy is included as part of the general fund.
So this
Okay.
is still an unresolved?
It's still unresolved. Now, there's no, I guess there's no downside to that, other than we report it,
So there's
okay?
no,
I mean, there's, you know, if you're talking, what's the stick that they would be holding over you?
yeah.
There's really nothing at
Okay.
this point. Now,
Okay.
it's probably, I mean, really, it entails establishing a fund, maybe a separate cash account, and then when you levy, you say, of your levy, instead of saying this is our general city levy, you say, here's our city levy, and here's our debt service levy.
Right.
You just carve it out of the same number.
Right.
It's just a carve out.
So is there a reason that we haven't done that?
No, no.
So, sometimes people, I've got a number of municipalities that do not have debt service funds. They figure less funds is better.
Yeah.
And frankly, sometimes I have to agree, even though I'm forced to write this up. I don't necessarily agree that you have to have it, you know. As long as you're able to track your debt, levy appropriately, and make your debt service payments timely, you know, and in order. You know, yes, formally it should be there. On a really do I need it basis, at this point, not necessarily.
All right, that makes sense, thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else have comments or questions? And we don't need to take any action, or do we?
That's on the
It's
next item.
Oh, that's, yeah,
There's
that's
resolution
coming,
18.
that's right, yeah, but not at this moment. Okay, so that moves us on to item E. Betsy, would you read the title and Resolution 1827?
Sure. Resolution 1827, resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, accepting the comprehensive annual financial report as presented by the external audit firm.
Okay. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Otherwise, you can call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay. And we would like to thank you for coming tonight to give the report and for answering our questions. Okay, let's go back to... All right, moving on to item F. Resolution 1828, amending impact fees. Would you read that for us, Betsy?
Resolution 1828, adjustments to impact fees.
Okay, and Steve, are you or is Betsy who talks on this one?
Either one of us, you want to get a motion?
Yeah, I suppose. Okay, is there a motion? Somebody want to make a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 1828, amending impact fees.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, now we can, thank you for mentioning that.
This is part of the original ordinance instituting impact fees in Lake Mills, which I think goes back to 95, 96. And it says that annually we will raise the impact fees by
The Consumer Price Index.
Consumer Price Index. So we've done this every year that I've been here. We have adjusted the impact fees in the last couple of years so that the total amount has changed, but it still looks at it and says you increase them every year by the percentage point. The Consumer Price Index was 2.1, so they are going up 2.1%. Most of them are not that substantial anymore. Water is still probably the biggest one. Sewer has dropped in most areas pretty substantially. Community center has gone altogether. So that's about all I can think of. Anything else?
No. Mm-mm.
Any questions?
No? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay. Resolution 1829. Would you read that title for us, Betsy, when you have a chance?
Resolution 1829, authorizing the purchase of property located at 1204 South Main Street and N6060 State Road 89, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
Okay. Is there a motion? Is there a, yeah, somebody want to make a motion to adopt?
I move adoption of Resolution 1829.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, now, we're purchasing property. Any comments from staff?
This property has been an interesting trail of activity for us for about, since Highway 89 started. But the property came up for sale. The bank had it. It's right next to the bike trail. Runs significantly back from Main Street to the east. And it's just across the bike trail from the barn that we bought last year. And it's part of TID number 5. And so there are some proposals for being able to utilize that property in a higher and better fashion. So the council has authorized us to negotiate on it. This is the price that was put forward, and so we're just asking you to approve the purchase.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay. Well, recommendations for future agendas. Do we have anything we know right now will be on the next agenda besides regular business?
City manager annual review.
Under closed session?
Correct.
Okay.
Is this the formal one or the
No.
more or less
Trimester.
informal?
Trimester.
Okay.
Yeah, the formal one is next.
It's in October. Okay. Is there anything
That's not one.
else on the agenda that we know of, or we're hoping will be on, or
I don't,
at this point you don't have?
yeah, I don't have anything.
Okay. Sounds good.
Was there a discussion about, talking about donating to the league? Or funding the league, or?
You making a donation to the League of Municipalities for the dark stores
Should we put that on?
issue?
Yeah, weren't we gonna put that on an agenda?
Sure.
Can we,
Yeah, we can do that.
is this okay time to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I check and make sure that they're still looking for donations, but that's, what did the letter say? It's in here.
It said you can make a minimum donation of, I think it was 1,200.
Okay. So that'll be on the next agenda.
I would
All right.
also, I mean, I'd like to propose to talk about the issue of parking down at Sandy Beach and maybe having a designated parking spot for scooters slash
For-
motorcycles to save kind of parking room for everyone else.
Would you repeat to have designated?
Have a designated parking spot for scooters
Oh,
and motorcycles.
scooters.
Yeah.
I didn't get the word scooters, I'm sorry.
In other words, so a scooter doesn't take up a
Full spot by
parking,
itself.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that certainly is. Okay, is that something, just put it on the agenda to discussion, for a discussion item?
Mhm.
Okay. Would we need it as an action item as well?
Well, can I make a suggestion? I'm wondering, would that be,
Something handled by staff?
no, well, or sent to the Public Works Board?
Or the Parks Board?
Or the
Parks,
Parks
maybe,
Board,
yeah,
yes, Parks Board too.
I would think Parks Board.
I would too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should we send it to Parks Board?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, and, yeah, they just finished their meeting this week, I think.
No, it's
So it
tomorrow.
wouldn't be until the
Parks
next.
Board is tomorrow night.
Oh, it's tomorrow night, but we can't get it on the agenda anymore. But,
I can bring it up for a future agenda item with them.
yeah, yeah.
Do you meet
Um,
monthly for the Parks Board?
Correct.
Um, has it been a problem that scooters have been taking up full parking spaces?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah, we definitely need to do something about that.
Would we somehow have to have an ordinance? Because it's one thing to designate parking spots for scooters only, but then how do we tell people with motorcycles and scooters you can't park in a regular parking space and be able to back it up? I'm not sure if we can have an ordinance to that effect, but it seems to me that if we're going to do that, we'd have to do the whole picture.
yeah, because I don't think you can tell them, no,
Yeah.
they can't park in regular spots, but you can, from my understanding, you can designate specific areas just for just for them.
Actually, the city council can, on private property as well as parks property, designate by ordinance where parking is, and it can be enforced by the police department. The issue is if you have a private parking lot and you don't have, and you put up a stop sign, but there's no official city ordinance, and it's not a legal stop sign, which means it meets all the requirements of, then it's not legal. There's no enforcement behind it, but if you do it through the full process, if you get all the right stuff in place, it could be done.
So, are we sending it to the Parks Board? But we don't need a city ordinance?
Oh yeah, we'll need a city ordinance if, depending on how we do it. But they would make the recommendation to do it, and you guys would have us put together an ordinance.
Okay.
The problem is timeline. By the time we get it, summer will be over.
Oh yeah, yeah, it'll
That
be,
was next summer.
it'll be a historical item for this year.
Yeah.
But that's still
Okay.
moving
But
pretty
it's,
fast for us.
if that's an issue that we need to address to make it more efficient, then I think sending it to the Parks Board would make sense in starting the process.
Well, I think we should. I
agree.
think we, if we're gonna have a Parks Board, we should send it to the Parks Board, so. So we'll do that. Anything else from anybody? Otherwise, Betsy, would you read item 10, please?
Convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to be involved.
Okay, is there a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in, call roll, please.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye,
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed.
and we will not be reconvening
I touched that, but I-
publicly,
No, I
but
didn't.
we will reconvene in our meeting.